Today I'm in the sandstorm in the Mojave Desert to talk about the peak power band in this Lexus GX460. Now it's a little bit of an interesting subject because the peak power band in this car comes at a relatively high RPM. Today I'm going to talk about how long you can stay in that power band, that peak power band. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I'm going to answer a question by subscriber squat and bench press, which is basically how long can you stay in the power band of this Lexus GX460. Now the power band in this car comes on at around 5,500 RPM. That's peak horsepower. So literally, if you're not revving out to that 5,500 RPM, which is near the red line of this car, you're not getting the peak horsepower. Now of course you don't need to have peak horsepower at all times, so of course if you don't want to drive in that peak RPM range, that's totally fine. But let's say you do, how long, this subscriber asked, can you be in that peak 5,500 to red line RPM range? Additionally, if you're towing, how does that affect things? The answer to this question basically is a little bit subjective, so let's start there with a disclaimer. This is going to be a subjective answer. This is going to be no hardcore objective scientific data behind my answer, but I am going to use logic on one hand and experience on the other to come up with what I believe is the correct answer. And getting right to it, the correct answer is use your common sense. And what I mean by that is don't abuse your engine on one hand by bouncing off the rev limiter, and don't baby your engine on the other hand by shifting at 1,000 RPM or whatever, something super low. The answer, like all things in life, is somewhere in the middle ground, the in-between, that sweet spot. But I do want to reiterate that this engine, this V8 engine designed by Yamaha, this V8 engine, it's a Yamaha engine. It is no petting zoo. So you're certainly doing yourself a disservice by playing it safe on this end. But again, you don't want to be living off the rev limiter and constantly bouncing off the rev limiter by having it at redline all the time on the other end. So what's the answer? The answer is simple. If you find yourself in a situation where you need extra power, say you're going uphill, like you're out there and you ever go to Colorado along the interstate, I think it's I-40, and you got a long stretch of uphill, for miles and miles. You're going straight up like this along the interstate, and if you need to drop it down into S mode, which will drop you down from drive into the next lowest gear, which is typically fourth gear, that's going to bring you into that power band. That's what it's for. So under normal conditions, and I'll get to what I mean by normal conditions in a second, under normal conditions, you're going in, you need more power going uphill, go ahead, hit S mode, drop it down to fourth, and you're going to be up in that power band area. The car is totally fine being in that power range for however long you need. And in the case of Colorado, on that stretch of interstate, you may be in that fourth gear and that higher RPM range for, you might be there for a good 40 minutes like that. That's totally fine. Again, under normal conditions, which I'll touch upon in a second. Now, same thing. If you're going to pass a truck, you're in fourth gear and you need to bring it down to third to get even more power and really dance along that red line, go ahead and do that too for when you're going to pass. Then when you're done passing, go back up to fourth. So again, use some common sense. Don't abuse it, but if you need to get that extra power to pass, go ahead and do it. Now, I wouldn't live on third gear in that condition, bouncing off the rev limiter for fun. That's pushing it a little bit, though I honestly think this engine is very conservatively built, meaning its parameters are well outside of what it can do at its max, is what I'm trying to babble out here. But under normal circumstances, those conditions of keeping it in third gear, fourth gear for as long as you want, going uphill when you need that extra power to pass, is totally fine. Now, what is not a normal condition, in my opinion, That's when you're towing something, when you're loaded up. So normal conditions is normal loads. Not normal conditions is not normal loads, heavy loads, i.e. towing, or i.e. you're loaded up with people and junk or aftermarket nonsense in your car. Under those conditions, when you're loaded up, do whatever the manual states. I don't tow, so I don't have the exact specs of what you should do. What does the manual say? Check your owner's manual, but I would assume it would be to play it safe, be conservative. You might need to add some sort of tow package, such as a transmission cooler, if you're going to be carrying heavy loads. So, but not counting heavy loads, you can rev these engines up as much as you want. They are dual overhead cam engines. The fear of over revving an engine comes from the old days of push rods and overdoing the valve train, when literally overhead cams back then was race car stuff. Now every car has overhead cams, and that REDLINE is there for a reason. And so you can rev it as much as you want. Again, use your own common sense, but certainly don't treat it with kid gloves or whatever and baby it, but don't abuse it either. If you need to power, go ahead and use S mode and rev it up all you want. It's there. The REDLINE is there for a reason. The limiter is there for a reason. And there's nothing inside of the engine that can't handle the duration, a long duration of high revs all day and all night. It's engineered for that. The problem comes in when you load it up. When you load it up and do that, then you're adding heat into the equation and all sorts of other factors that the engineers did not engineer to be in that range. That's outside of the normal range. So if there's anything I want you to take away from today's ramblings about this topic, is I would not be afraid to, if I'm going uphill and I need extra power, to rev it out as much as I want if I'm not overloaded. Obviously within reason. The thing that you got to figure out and be okay with is what is within reason. Depends on your culture. Most Americans, because of those push rod days, are not comfortable revving out past 1,500 grand to 2,000 grand on a V8 engine. But these are high revving Yamaha 4-cam engines. They can take it all day and all night as long as you're not overloaded. But again, do so at your own risk. But we're in the year 2023 and people have absolutely spanked on dual overhead cam, even single overhead cam, Japanese made engines, Hondas, Mazdas, Toyotas, etc., Nissans, for now decades with no problems. The driveline can handle it. The problem again is when you overload. All right, enough babbling. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you and have a great day.